You are live.
Thank you. I will call this meeting of the Charter Review Commission of January 26, 2023 to order. And note that it's 5:02 p.m. I'll ask for a roll call from Elizabeth.
Okay, Commissioner Guzman is excused.
Yes.
Commissioner Blondis,
Present.
Commissioner Blondis. Can you unmute and say you're here?
Present.
Thank you. Dear Deck,
Here.
Commissioner Granillo,
Present.
Ives, Commissioner Montoya,
Here.
Commissioner Ortiz,
I see her in the attendee room. Have we tried to promote her?
Doing so now.
Okay, great. Maybe we
I'll come
could
back.
pass-
I'll come back to her. Commissioner Pettit,
Present.
Chair Long,
Here.
Chair Long,
Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Here.
You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. And good to see you up on the screen this evening. Next on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Would someone like to move to approve the agenda or suggest any revisions?
I will move to approve the agenda. Commissioner Montoya.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that, Commissioner Ortiz, and I just have to congratulate and thank our recorder for the good job that she's doing on the minutes. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay. All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
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 Minutes.
No, this is on the agenda.
This was the,
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm on the wrong place. Sorry. Okay.
Aaron, do we have to do a roll call vote? Or are we okay?
For the minutes, is that what you're saying?
For the agenda.
Oh, for the
Do we
agenda.
need to do a roll call vote? Okay.
So the recommendation for virtual meetings is roll call votes in general. So I think that is the recommendation so that you can tell who. voted.
So there's yeah, do you want me to, so I should call the roll?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Blondis, this is the vote for the Commissioner Blondis,
Yes.
Commissioner Deardeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Grenier,
Yes.
Commissioner Montoya,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz,
Yes.
Commissioner Pettis,
Yes.
Chair Long,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, now we go on to the minutes. This is our minutes from January 12th, 2023. Are there any revisions that need to be made to the minutes that someone would like to suggest? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move approval of the minutes as presented. And again, thank you for a great job.
Thank you so much.
Is
I
there,
have a question, Chair Long. I asked about the minutes today. I'm not receiving the minutes. I don't know how you all are receiving the minutes.
I think the minutes are linked to the agenda online as an item. Is that correct, Aaron?
I
They are.
don't, sorry, Commissioner, this is Commissioner Montoya. I did not have the minutes attached to my agenda either.
Okay, could we go ahead and get a second to the motion just so that that's on the table, the motion to approve the
Madam
minutes?
Chair.
Second, Commissioner Blondis.
Okay. All right, so let's figure out what's happening with the minutes.
So I think, are you saying in the email that folks didn't get the minutes? Because that's absolutely accurate. Yes. And I don't think anyone got them via email. And probably we should have done a little bit of a PrimeGov tutorial, which is how we're managing all of our committees right now at the city. So if you go on the city's website to
Meetings and agenda.
meetings and agendas, and then all of them are listed there by the Friday before the meeting happens. And then the minutes, so all the attachments for an agenda are listed there. as well. So any uploaded, so we had uploaded all the like the topic sheets the week we did that were uploaded there, and they're still there. So you can look at any prior meeting. And then what's also really nice about the system is it connects to the YouTube video, and then is also linked by topic to the YouTube video. So, and I have gotten so used to the system, I forget that everyone else doesn't use it on a every hour basis, essentially. And probably all the rest of the team also is in that situation. But all of our public meetings are now listed on this PrimeGov system. I find it very easy to manage, but if anyone has any issues with it, we do have a pretty close relationship with our kind of fix-it team, and we were one of their earlier clients, so they've been really working with us to update things. So we absolutely appreciate feedback on it as well. But I do apologize, we didn't, I don't think, do an orientation on that system at all. So that is where the minutes will be loaded to the agenda.
And any other agenda materials will be there as well. They'll just be linked to it. Okay, thank you for that, Erin. All right, let's do a roll call on the minutes.
Commissioner Blondis,
Yes.
Deerdeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Granillo,
Yes.
Toya,
I feel like I should abstain because I haven't seen the minutes.
okay. Commissioner Ortiz,
Yes.
Commissioner Pettis,
Same thing, I'll just be present for this one.
so you'll abstain.
Mhm.
Chair Long,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, next to public comment. Do we have anyone? Connor, I assume not, but do we have anyone that wants to make any?
Forgive me, I accidentally muted you instead of unmuting myself. I apologize.
That's okay.
I would actually defer to our ITT on this in case there's anyone watching on YouTube who has left a comment or would like to. I don't know if that's even a capability that we have, but okay, in that case, there's no one else on the Zoom, so I think we're good.
Okay, thank you. All right, and I assume there was no written comment either. It looks like on our agendas, it does provide for that, but we'll assume there isn't any. Okay, next on to action items, discussion. The first is reports from subcommittees. And why don't we start with what I call the counselor subcommittee. Counselor district issues, boards and commissions. And the chair is Commissioner Deerdeck. If you would like to give us a report from your committee.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. And Alicia and Maria are other members of this subcommittee, and Wise Counsel is all Pats. We met and have another meeting scheduled. We went through each of the items that have been assigned to us and are mindful of the fact that as history goes on, the chair may assign other things. So we need to get moving on those we already know because time will suddenly become scarce. So we looked at these 4 items, and in one case, the matter of resign to run, you'll remember that's item number G on your docket.
Right.
We developed some alternative ways of approaching it, and we know that at an upcoming meeting, perhaps even this coming week, we will need to bear down on which ones we prefer or which ones do we least prefer. And so there's some prioritization starting already. We know enough about the issue so that prioritization is starting to become possible. Beyond that, the more detailed and perplexing items are the number of districts and the number of counselors per district. And we're starting to sort out what the implications are of different numbers and different combinations of those 2 numbers. It's becoming obvious that it's hard to analyze either A or B in isolation from the other. And
Right.
so we need to sort those, and we're making progress, but it doesn't surprise me. My colleagues can correct me if they think it's differently. They think differently, but it doesn't surprise me that that is the part of this agenda that's going to take a few iterations before clarity begins to appear. Having said all that, we started this process by talking about the values we want to bring to each of the propositions we're analyzing. And it seems to me, and again, chime in if you think I'm overextending, but it seems to me that what these values do for us is either show us what values we apply uniformly to all of the questions, or it shows us which questions require prioritization of which value. And those are two different ways of dealing with values. And so that's going to be in front of us as well. But I think that summarizes our discussion of our last week's meeting, and we will go at it again this coming week and hopefully make a good deal more progress reported to you as soon as we can. How was that?
That's very good. Thank you for that report, and thank you for meeting. Are there any questions of this committee? I'll be interested to hear about your varying methods of dealing with the resignation to run for mayor issue. So sounds intriguing.
And I think it's fair to say, Nancy, that we defined a minimum change, a medium change, and a maximum change. And we are raging up and down that scale.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. All right, let's hear from the Governance and Finance Committee, and this is Commissioner Ortiz is the chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we've met once, and actually there's only two of us. Of course, we had our stellar attorney, Mr. Martinez, join us and help keep us legal. And because there was just the two of us, we pretty much talked about process and what we're thinking of in terms of how to put our arms around this issue and deal with it. Of course, we're talking about whether city councilors should be full-time, whether the roles of the mayor and the councilors and the manager should be better defined, whether the mayor's role should be purely executive or legislative or combination, as well as reviewing the financial management pieces of the charter. So in talking about the process, we talked about, let me back up. We looked at a model charter outline that talked about determining what things would be relevant for inclusion in charter. And what things might not be, and to make that decision early on. And because we've been given a mandate to address several issues, not of our own selection, we believe that we're going to be looking at these items, not necessarily determining if they belong in the charter, but researching them, analyzing, studying them, and determine if there's language that needs to be passed forward to the city, whether it should be included in the charter. Perhaps it could go further to be in an ordinance or maybe an administrative measure. But because we've been asked to study these, we're going to study them and do our best estimate to determine if it should be charter material or not. So we're looking at the current charter, examining that along with the model practices that we've gotten, and our attorney Marcos got us an excellent 2-inch thick document that's got all of the model language of charters throughout the country, and that's a really good resource. And we're going to be looking at our current charter and crosswalking that with these model practices. Since there was only two of us commissioners there, we've each taken a section, and for our next meeting, which is this coming week, we're going to have samples of what our current charter contains in that particular subject area that we're each working on. And then we're going to be crosswalking that with the model practices. So there's a lot of work to be done just in terms of putting our arms around and getting a handle on what the current charter looks like, what the model is suggesting might look like, to see what improvement is needed, what improvement is evident, what voids they are based on our existing charter, and what language or what parameters could be included to improve our existing charter. Again, looking at a charter that advances the public welfare of our community. The other thing we talked about, and this might be a legal issue, in terms of organizing our charter, we just in the first quick look, it appears that many of the, for example, the financial issues, audit issues, are different places within the charter. And it appears that perhaps a reorganization of the charter would make it more user-friendly in terms of people looking at it, in terms of finding all of the relevant documentation in one subject matter in one place. Now, we don't know, because the elements of the charter have already been approved by the electorate, if it's possible, did the community approve the format? I don't know. Can we, without changing the language that's already been approved, restructure the organization of the document? That's a legal question. And if that's the case, then we'll continue pursuing, trying to organize the different subject pieces together. So that's a question we have. But we're just in the very beginning stages of it, and we hope to have our third member with us at our next meeting and really get into the weeds. We've scheduled 2 more meetings, and so we're ready to dissect this and see what improvements we can add. Any did I miss anything? Oh, okay. Marcos, miss anything?
Very good summary. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I could ask a question, Commissioner Ortiz, you said you're looking at some of these issues kind of with a lens of maybe it should be an ordinance instead rather than in the charter. Does that apply to the financial issues and audit issues as well?
Well, no, because the other 3 issues we were asked to look at by the city council and the mayor, and so we feel we need to respond back to them in that regard. But I think, to be honest with you, we didn't discuss whether that one should be treated differently. We didn't really discuss that, but it makes sense to me that we should look at them all with the same lens and the same screen and the same analysis process. So we really haven't made a determination whether that would be treated differently in our analysis.
Okay, are there any other questions for Commissioner Ortiz? Okay, thank you. Thank you for your work. And our third committee is the Human Rights Social Issues. I don't know if this one has had a chance to meet. I know the chair is Commissioner Ives, and he had been out of town. So why don't I ask one of the other members of the committee, those are Commissioners Granillo, Pettis, and Blondes, if there's any comment regarding this committee, any report.
Commissioner Blondes has a, Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Blondes.
We did actually meet. It was Commissioner Granillo and Commissioner Pettis, I believe, joined us briefly. And at that, during that period, we talked and we reviewed what the charter says. We discussed whether or not the wording seemed to be extensive enough. And that was really, we had Counselor Murphy join us. He is to be assisting our particular subcommittee, as I understand it. In the interim, I did request that we be able to at least look at and study a city that would be comparable, that I recommended to Connor, a city in central Missouri that is the home of the University of Missouri, 2 other colleges, about 100,000 people, very racially diverse, very multi-ethnic. with a city council mayor charter city form of government. They have a charter. Then I also noticed that Commissioner Ives, just before the meeting, sent some materials that he had, pretty extensive amounts, which I have not had a chance to look through. As I said, they arrived between 4:30 and 5. So I would be interested, and I believe Commissioner Bernio would also, in looking at the governance of Columbia, Missouri, a progressive city in the Midwest. And I believe Commissioner Ives referred to a city in Washington State. I don't know the size of it. I'll have to research it myself. King County or something like that, that he had an interest in. And that's about all I can tell you about our committee.
Okay, and I will communicate with Commissioner Ives about those issues. I think what we decided our process would be is that before we take up an issue for evaluation and reporting back, that we need to consider it as a whole, as a commission, decide whether we want to take it up. Not saying we won't, but I think we'd like to hear more about it and actually vote on it, and then we can take it from there. So that we're not going off in a lot of different directions. So I'll find out what that's about before our next meeting. So thank you very much for that report, and thank you for meeting. Next is are there any questions for Commissioner Blondis? Should have asked. Next on our agenda are new topics to consider. I believe that Commissioner Deardack would like to present one for our consideration.
Thank you very much. Yes, I do. You all heard me 2 meetings ago when I described a concern that I and the people I talked to carry, and that is that this seems to me and to us to be an opportunity to look at the conduct of democratic process in our city. And indeed, in a time of national experience when emphasis on democracy is more democratic in some places and less so in others, the moral imperative around it just becomes heightened. So I have looked into it, and I've discovered that we do have an opportunity to make a municipal, that is to say local, change in the way we qualify people to vote. They can be qualified to vote according to rules that the city would adopt, and that they can in this particular case could extend the franchise to people who are younger than the rules that apply to the state as a whole. For instance, one must be 18 in order to register to vote throughout New Mexico, but it would be possible for Santa Feans to begin voting at 16 for local elections only. Now, it happens that this year is the 10th anniversary of that procedure being followed in a city here in the United States. And there's a city in Maryland that's named Topeka, if you can imagine, Topeka, Maryland. And they took this action 10 years ago, and other cities across the country have been watching them and have been and are at various stages of making such a similar decision. I think the more interesting part of my discovery since the last time we talked has been that both the United States Congress has considered this matter and our legislature has considered the matter. And those of us, those who are members of those bodies and are Santa Feans, were advocates in both cases. and are on the record as having voted in favor. They have not yet achieved a majority, but that's where they are. And so I have spoken to people who were involved in both processes. My most fulsome conversation, I was in another meeting on another subject with Senator Worth, and he explained to me that in the last session, a short session, in fact, there was something called Senate Bill 8. And Senate Bill 8 was an omnibus bill that would affect all kinds of voting circumstances and expand them. And of course, in a short session, it died in committee. It died a noble death, but dead it is. And he assured me that they are now in the process of disaggregating Senate Bill 8, and they will take it up piecemeal, which is probably what they should have done in the first place. But Senator Hamblin, Carrie Hamblin, some of you are aware of her. She will be carrying this, and the particular item on an earlier voter age is likely to come. It's not yet been put on the official schedule with a number, but he said to look for it from Javier Martinez, the new speaker. So I'll follow that carefully. And Madam Chair, if indeed the commission allows us to take a look at this for the sake of Santa Fe, I think what I will be saying consistently is I will bring reports of where the United States Congress is on this and where our legislature is on this. And if it should happen that they take action before we do, I'll let you know and we can just withdraw. But prior to that, I know that legislators in New Mexico would take it as instructive and useful if Santa Fe were to exert some leadership. So that's kind of the status. I think I've said to you before that the reasons this change would be beneficial are that it would allow school districts that have the school district here in Santa Fe that teaches civics, for instance, or teaches social involvement, to teach about voting and to give young people a chance to vote, and give people 16 and 17 prior to leaving the high school a chance to participate in this process. And the evidence is just growing by the year that the earlier people start to vote, the more likely they are to continue voting in every election in their life. People who don't vote at all are people who haven't started voting. It's starting, that's the hurdle. And so we have districts in the city where voting is far more prevalent than in other districts, and that leads to inequities. And it's my view that anytime we encounter democratic inequities, we need to deal with them. So I think that summarizes what this is about. And when it's discussed in a committee, it could be elaborated, and more questions needing research could be articulated and some research be done.
Thank you, Commissioner Duerdaken, for all your work and your research on the issue. That was well presented. Are there any questions about this initiative? Yes, Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just trying to put my arms around what the subject matter is. Is it simply dealing with voter age, or are there going to be other voter issues that are going to be considered and potentially included that make it different for the city of Santa Fe than any other city in the state of New Mexico? Just trying to get a better feel for it, because I've seen in the legislature hours of conversations and discussions about the 16-year-olds voting, and that and if you couple that with lots of other issues, then we're dealing with a big piece. So I'm just trying to understand what we're considering looking at and what we're voting on this evening to be included as one of our research initiatives.
Thank you. And Pardon me for my difficulty with my illumination. There it comes. Thank you for the question. Indeed, I only intend to pursue the age question. Strictly that and only that. And it's because, quite as you say, each of these subjects gets very, very deep and broad, and people have lots of views about it. And this one seemed to me, at least, and to the few people I've talked to, as one that is clearer and more accessible than some of the more expansive ones. And this is one that we ought to tackle before we tackle the others, if ever. But I'm not intending to bring anything to this commission other than the one I've just described.
Thank you for that information.
Okay, are there any other questions? Why don't we consider whether we should add this to our topics for consideration? You can certainly make that motion, Commissioner Deardack, if you like.
Thank you, and I do.
I thought so. Is there a second to the motion to take up this topic? There is.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Thank you, Commissioner Pettis. All right, is there any discussion on the motion to take up the topic of lowering the voting age to 16 for city elections as part of our charter? Okay, let's take a roll call vote on including that item.
Commissioner Blondis. Commissioner
I'll
Blondis,
pass.
are you abstaining?
Yes.
Commissioner Deardack,
Aye.
Commissioner Grinio,
Aye.
Commissioner Montoya,
Yes, aye.
Ortiz. Ortiz.
Yeah, I was thinking. I'll say yes for now.
Okay, Commissioner Pettis,
Aye.
Chair Long,
Yes.
motion passes.
And also, did we get Commissioner Ives' vote? He joined our meeting, Elizabeth.
Who did?
Commissioner Ives.
Commissioner Ives? Commissioner Ives?
Yes,
On mute.
you're muted. There you go.
My response is yes, and I just wanted to note that the agenda I received from Mr. Murphy indicated the meeting was starting at 5:30 p.m. So
Oh,
that's why I joined at 5:30.
My apologies, sincerely. I will look into that.
Okay. So the motion passes and I need to refer this to a committee. I know it is Commissioner Deardack's initiative, but I think it makes most sense to send it to the Human Rights Social Issues Committee. And I know Commissioner Pettis has had some interest in these voting and voter issues. Since they have just one item right now, I think that makes the most sense. If that committee is fine with that. Okay, and on to the issue of other topics. Are there any other topics that any commissioners would like to propose that we take up or to discuss for a further vote in the future?
So I had not realized until I read the minutes, Madam Chair, that I was chairing the Human Rights and Social Issues Committee, but happy to be doing that, and I have communicated out to the committee today, copying you as a member of all of the committees. And so I'm not sure what specific item has been allocated to the committee so far, but
Yes, Commissioner, you have item I from the resolution, which whether the human and civil rights policy statement should be more specific with regards to breadth of required protections and or the manner in which such rights should be protected. And we knew that we would be adding some more.
Gotcha. One of
Now
the,
you-
items-
Voter issue.
I was going to say, one of the items,
Voice is not recognized.
one of the, sorry, my system is having issues. One of the items I had sent out to the subcommittee members dealt with a sort of equity lens, which gets to that particular topic. So I think we certainly could address issues within that context. The other one I would propose to take up is agriculture and the promotion of hydroponic and aquaponic structures in the city to dealing with the city's sustainable food future, and had sent out a link to folks identifying some resources there. But I think that's, we, of course, excuse me, the city's food policy committee, and I think I'm remembering that correctly, but I may not have the name exactly correct, did identify food deserts and hunger as issues within the community. So looking at agriculture in a new and different way with the committee and with the possibility of adding something to the charter, I think would help to address that particular, what I would call human right and basic social issue. So hoping to take up agriculture as a broad statement, but specifically more water sensitive hydroponic and aquaponic use of water in the city.
Okay, and I think we discussed this at our last meeting, Commissioner Ives, and you may not have been there, but our process for bringing items forward, and I know you mentioned both of these at our December meeting, is that we will vote on any additional topics that are to be considered by the commission as a whole before it goes to a committee and before staff is asked to spend time to analyze and weigh in on issues, just so that we know we're all in support of that and we're spending our resources wisely. So I don't know if members of the commission want to weigh in on these, or if people feel like they may need some more information, but these are the two issues that Councillor Ives is proposing: the agriculture, sort of water sensitive, as I understand it, agriculture policy, and the equity lens. We might need to know more about that, but does anyone have any questions for Commissioner Ives on these issues? Yes.
Madam
Sure.
Chair, members of the commission, while I agree that obviously the notion of food security ought to be right, I guess I'm curious about addressing it in a charter, and whether you know of any other cities that have done this, or what sort of idea you have on how this would be addressed in the city charter.
So I think the particular issues that could be addressed in the charter would be, one, to address the elimination of food insecurity and food deserts across the city, and to identify at least the mechanism, I think, that makes sense in the arid Southwest for addressing that issue, which is to promote the use of greenhouses that recirculate water. And one might even additionally suggest in the charter that utilizing some special rates at the utility company, the city's water utility company, to promote that might be in order as well. There are any number of ordinances that are starting to come up across the country dealing with these issues, and greenhouses are being identified as accessory use units for properties. But I must admit, my own thinking is that in places like the 300 acres of Tierra Contenta that has yet to be developed, setting aside some property and putting in greenhouses, and this might also be done in the northwest quadrant, would make sense from the perspective of, again, upping the sustainability of the city in the long term.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, I think we'll go to Commissioner Ortiz. I think I missed her before, and then Commissioner Deardack.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not familiar enough about the subject matter to really speak a whole lot about it, but my question is geared around whether these are not policy proposals or policy directives that would be more or better handled through the city officials and the staff and ordinances, if they're deemed worthy to be put out there in as part of the city governance. But I guess I would ask our attorneys, is this subject matter charter material?
It's a good
So
question.
I think stated so generally, it's hard to say. Yeah, I mean, if we wanted to require one of our elected officials to have a background in agriculture, that sounds like a charter issue. But I don't know if that's, legally possible. I'm just throwing something out there that's real, specific, that would relate to that. So I think it really would depend. And I don't know that there's anything that says something can't go in the charter. It's just generally more governance and structure and things that you don't want a particular governing body to be able to change on their own.
Madam Chair, I have a follow-up question on that.
Yes.
Aaron, in terms of what Commissioner Ives is talking about, like designating some city properties around the city to deal with agriculture and sort of like food sustainability issues, is that something that is like a zoning issue type of thing? Like where does that determination come into play?
So I think it would really depend on what level of requirement the proposal was. If it was that the governing body shall come up with policies or ordinances around that idea, there's other policy statements in our charter saying that the governing body needs to address a particular issue or pass a particular ordinance that addresses an idea. But we probably wouldn't have the specifics of that policy in the charter. At least that would be outside of how our charter is set up.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Deardack. You had a
These
comment?
questions are going in a similar direction, but not exactly to the one I wanted to ask you, Peter. It seemed to me as you were speaking that one part of the committee's reflection on the topic could help us as commissioners see where the jurisdiction of various governmental bodies like the Planning Commission, for instance, intersects, protects all the agencies from cross purposes and from violation of their turf. And if the background material in whatever you produce could pay attention to such things, who has jurisdiction over what and why, then it's going to be easier to justify sentences in a charter than if it's simply a whole cloth statement and it's everybody else's business to figure out how to stay out of our business. So if the committee could wrap its head around the complexities of that, then it'll be a lot easier for us as commissioners to see it in a charter.
And if just by way of responding and a little bit of background, Mayor Gonzalez and I had worked on a modification of city ordinance to allow for in-city farming. There had been then an article written by the owner of Gaia Gardens, first name of Pokey, and I apologize, I can't remember his last name, but who had such a garden, who noted that since the passing of that ordinance, there had not been a single new, if you will, garden established, food production garden in the city that had been created. So my sense is that we need to do more and be creative and do it in a more sustainable way. Generally, I would think anything we put in the charter towards that type of guidance, and the charter does deal with environmental issues, with neighborhood issues, would generally ultimately be seen then in ordinances, which would undoubtedly be then further reflected in the land use code, probably by a modification to permitted uses in various zoning districts. But the guidance on utilization of city property to make sure, say, that there was sufficient food resource to meet the needs of the community is something that is perhaps the type of broad direction that one could include in the charter, saying this is a significant enough issue to the people of Santa Fe that we're making it part of that fundamental document. But yes, I would anticipate then ordinances and changes to the land use code would be necessary.
May I add one more comment, just in terms of what Commissioner Ives just said? Friends, listen, one of the big benefits of doing something like this would be that it would go directly in front of the voters if the council agreed, and the public would speak. And that would mean that potential endless controversy would be declared one way or the other by the electorate, and then we could get into the issues. So that's one of the reasons I would favor what Commissioner Ives has said.
And Commissioner Granillo.
Yes, yes, Madam Chair. Thank you. I would just like to say with what Mr. Ives is, what he's focusing on with the gardening, I believe that it would be a good fit for where we're going with the charter, because it would give people the opportunity to be able to work on getting their own food and their own process of what we can do with city help, because I do run a small farm on the south side of the community in the Agua Fria Village area. However, that farm is owned by the county, who I have a contract with, and the minute that the county doesn't want us to have it anymore, there goes that food source for that area of the community, and all that food goes to the community and it's raised by the community. So I believe, like, really tightening down, if we were to take a subject like this and looking at what these contractual agreements would be a very large part of where I would want to focus my time, and I would follow Mr. Ives into this endeavor.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if this one needs some more filling out. I feel like Commissioner Ives, the equity lens piece probably does. If that's something, I think you can talk to, your committee about it. But if you can bring something back a little more specific on that for us to consider, I think that would be helpful at our next meeting. On this food policy, agriculture issue, I mean, we should, with your description, take a vote on that one if you want to make a motion to consider it.
I would certainly move that the Human Rights and Social Issues Committee of the Charter Review Commission look at issues surrounding sustainable agriculture in the city, promoting that, especially as it relates to water usage.
Okay, and actually it will be the commission as a whole, if we vote on it, that will consider it. It's just that it would go, I think it would go to that committee.
Yeah.
Assign those, but I think that's where it would is the most logical. Okay, so there is a motion to consider this policy issue by Commissioner Ives. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, Commissioner Deardack, is there further discussion by the commission? Yes, Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm referencing back to some good information that our attorney gave us at our subcommittee meeting, talking about a charter, and about a charter is very like the Constitution, and it holds those global major governance issues in there that and I'm struggling trying to determine if this is one of those areas, and that's why I asked our attorney what guidance or what additional information she could give us regarding this subject matter, because I really think it's very meritorious, and I think there's probably a lot of good information that can be shared and developed and perhaps put in ordinances, but I'm not convinced that it is a charter and it should be something we spend a lot of time on because we have so many other issues to deal with. So I really would love to hear more from our attorney in terms of that regard, because at this point I'm inclined not to support it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much more to say on it. It really depends on what the recommendation is, whether it's a global policy type issue versus something very specific. Yeah, I think it would really depend on the specifics. So it's not totally clear to me what level of proposals being moved right now. So
Right. I think what we'll look for is something coming out of this committee and decide whether to continue to pursue it at that point or whether it meets, the criteria for a charter amendment. Okay, is there any other discussion?
I would simply say certainly the committee would be working to ensure that anything it does bring forward on this is in a format that is amenable to the charter. But I think it's a significant enough issue in terms of Santa Fe and its future that its consideration is reasonable in the instance and worthwhile to take a look at.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, let's have a roll call vote, Elizabeth, on this motion.
Okay, Commissioner Blondus,
Yes.
Commissioner Deardack,
Yes.
Commissioner your
Yes.
vote. Commissioner
Yes.
Commissioner Montoya,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Chair Long,
Yes.
motion passed.
Okay. So we'll wait to hear from your committee on that issue.
Chair Long, are you assigning it to that committee?
Yes, this issue will be assigned to the Human Rights Social Issues Committee. Thank you for that reminder.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other topics that commissioners would like to bring forward this evening? Yes, Commissioner Blondus.
Chair Long, commissioners, along with the human rights issues that the subcommittee is wanting to discuss, I believe that it's worthwhile to consider wording in the charter for a human rights commission. I think that while we have in the city community and public safety, that really isn't, I know in speaking with Councilor Rivera, that's works somewhat like human rights, but it's really not a commission. And in other cities, I have seen that written into the charter of the city. And then that commission being an integral part of the future of the city in consideration of exactly what its title says, human rights. So that's my proposal. Thank you.
Let me ask our city attorney if that recommendation could be seen as part of item I, whether the civil rights policy statement should be more specific and the manner in which rights should be protected.
Yes, I think it could definitely fall under that one. In fact, New York, that's where they put theirs, their Human Rights Commission. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. So
Columbia,
that,
Missouri also.
okay, so that'll be considered as part of your look at that item from the resolution then. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Pettis.
Thank you, Chair Long. Commissioner Ives, I wonder also what your thoughts are about incorporating the idea of this equity lens into a body like that. Like if we could also tag that sort of piece of research and consideration into that.
I would, my response would be that it does fall within the context of human rights and social issues. And really, it's just taking a broader perspective and reiterating the significance of those issues in a context that would sort of direct to some degree mechanisms that should be considered to accomplish that. So I believe it could be.
Okay, I think that's a good point. Maybe something you can look at as part of this item from the resolution that you'll be looking at. All right, any other topics that anyone would like to discuss? Commissioner Blondis, did you have another one, or I see that your hand is up?
Do we need to vote on that?
On,
Considering the establishment under our subcommittee, are exploring, I guess is the proper term, a human rights commission being written into the charter? Or no?
I don't know that you need to, as we are seeing that as part of that item I that has already been assigned to you, whether it should be more specific. If one of the matters of more specificity is you think there should be a commission, then that would fall under that. So I think you're already there.
Yeah.
But thank you for asking that. Okay, other topics then. On to item C under action items. And this is kind of a holdover from our last meeting where we did get the correct date on here to have our second meeting in March. Virtually, Commissioner Ives, we voted last month to have the first meeting of March virtually as we are tonight. And we knew that there were some conflicts for people in March, so we were trying to get the second meeting also approved. So that is what this motion is directed at. If someone would like to make that motion.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Billy Mayer.
Is there a second?
Madam
Second.
Chair, I'm happy to set. Oh.
A couple of seconds, Commissioner Montoya. All right. Is there any discussion on this motion? If not, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Blondis,
Yes.
Commissioner Deardeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Granillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Ives,
Yes.
Commissioner Montoya,
Yes,
Commissioner Montoya,
said yes, but I guess it didn't come through. Yes,
sorry, Commissioner
okay.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Commissioner Pettis,
Yes,
Chair Long,
Yes,
motion passes. And Chair Long, can I have the date of that meeting so I can?
Yes.
motion?
it is March 30, 2023.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any matters from staff?
I have a few Yes, thanks. It does look like all versions of our agenda said 5:30. So apologies for that. I don't know where that origin happened. If we wanted to correct for any possible error there, we could take the votes again for the time that started before 5:30, which I think was just a couple things. We didn't have anyone join our attendees room, so we don't think that someone joined late for public comment.
Right.
So we will,
It would only be for minutes and agenda.
okay. So I think
Sherry?
if there's interest in that, that would be something we might want to do just to have that covered on those two items. I did want to let folks know that we have a couple limitations on staff capacity right now, and that's that my prosecutor is on paternity leave, and Andrea Salazar, who's one of the assistant city attorneys, has been recruited to the state auditor's office. So she's going to be the general counsel there.
Oh, no.
So we are
Good
having
for
folks.
her.
Yeah, so congratulations to Andrea, absolutely. So she'll have a very much a statewide exposure there with all the local governments, all the agencies, all the universities, and any other independently elected officials as well. So big job. She's heading to her last day is next Friday. But needless to say, everyone's taking on a little bit more right now. And I want you guys to be aware of that. And I have involved probably more staff up front than maybe has been traditional. It's because we're all very interested, and this is a great topic to be able to be involved in. But I did want to just alert folks that that is something we're dealing with. So I've got one of the attorneys helping out at Muni Court. I've brought on a contract attorney over there for the prosecution for right now while our prosecutor's on paternity leave. And then we're going to be, covering Andrea's matters and getting that job posted right away next week when our new personnel system is online. So that's what we're waiting on for that. But so just circumstantially wanted you all to be aware of that. But I did want to encourage folks that if you need access to a meeting space, our conference room is available to you at City Hall. And Connor can help coordinate that with our office manager, Irene Romero. But Connor's your contact for that. Something else I did hear on the radio related to, so I heard legislation about rent control. So I know that was an interest of the group earlier, but the legislature is looking at that statute that I circulated. So there's other folks interested in that issue too. No idea how popular it is at the legislature, but it's out there. Commissioner Deerdeck already mentioned the 16-year-old voting. I did hear also that was going to be considered again this year. For school board elections and local elections, apparently was what the last year's legislation had in it.
It was.
Yeah. And let's see. So I guess we are here to provide city resources, but the commissioners are the folks who are doing the recommendations, I guess is where I'm going with the staff resources. And then ultimately, I do have to sign off on anything that we're going to put in front of the voters. So I think having early exposure to all these ideas and helping to the extent possible is very much in the interest of everyone. Because we don't want, ideally, I don't write something saying I think this is illegal and have to post that. But at this point, I don't think that's going to happen. But it's just something that that's why I think this office is the liaison to the commission. One of many reasons, probably. I think we're going to be circulating that 2-inch document that was mentioned earlier to everybody. So you could benefit from it as well. Connor will circulate that. Marcos is going to get it to him. And any other, resources we have, we would like to get to the whole group. And then just as a note, I think, particularly given, Commissioner Ives wasn't here last time, most of the committee members committees are 3 members, but we do have the 1 4-person committee, which does just add a little bit of element of more complication related to Open Meetings Act. So I think there was some questions about that since the last meeting. So please be careful with that committee in particular. Any additional person in those conversations creates a quorum, whereas the other ones can, bring in Chairwoman Long and not have a problem. I think that's all of mine. Connor, do you have anything, or do Marcos or Pat have anything?
I do not at this time. I'm okay.
Okay, thank you. Now matters from the committee, Commissioner Ortiz.
Madam Chair, thank you. Just to follow up actually on our attorney's comments. I noticed that issue regarding the minutes and the time for the meeting to begin, as well as on the agenda. And I called today at 3:24 to make sure that all commissioners knew what was the correct time, because I know how those things happen. So I must not have the best number to call to get immediate response. So I guess I'd like to find out what that number is. I believe I used the number that was on the email that was sent to us. It was the last 4 digits were 4513.
That
So
is
there-
my number. And I must have, there was a scheduling issue today for me at work where I left slightly earlier than I normally do. And it may have been that I just did not check my work phone after I had left. I could have also been in a meeting and simply missed it. So that's my responsibility, and we'll work on the time issue going forward.
Okay, I was just trying to alert you all that there was a conflict. I wanted to make sure all of our commissioners were together at the right time. So, but that is the correct number to use. Is that
You can
right?
call me at that number. Yes.
Thank
that
you
is
so
correct.
much. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
That's all.
Okay, anything else from the committee? Yes, Commissioner Ives.
Given the Human Rights and Social Issues Committee has basically 4 members plus you as an additional, how would you like to handle communications from the subcommittee or attending meetings of the subcommittee of the committee?
I will not be able to attend that committee meeting, especially if you're all there, because you already have 4.
Yep.
I knew that would create some issues, but I can communicate with you
And happy to do that. I just wanted to make sure.
as long
I
as
knew
it's
what
just
your preference
us and, include the rest of the committee, and I wouldn't go to those meetings. But if there's something you need to communicate to me, then we can do that. And otherwise we'll take it up here at our meetings.
Very good. Thank you.
On that point, so if it's communicating what happened in the committee, that still causes the same problem.
Right, unless it's just some, I'm not gonna be able to weigh in on anything, but if it's just logistics, sort of as to, what you want on the agenda, that kind of thing, but yeah, no substance of your discussions. Because you've got the topics and we all consider them here, so you can just bring them forward here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, any other matters from the committee? I know it gets tricky. Yes, Commissioner Blondes.
I just wanted to verify with Counselor McSherry. 4 people can talk to one another if they're on the subcommittee. That's not going to be an issue, correct?
That's correct, Commissioner. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Deerdak, did you have a question?
I do. In one of our meetings as a subcommittee, we knew that we wanted to consult resources that we can find easily online and so forth. And we wanted each member of the subcommittee to be able to look at it and think about it. And I wondered, in other settings, I've had the experience of creating something that was simply called a resource file. And so resources for any purpose can be just put there with some kind of index, or maybe even not indexed, because there's not that many. If it's fewer than 100, you don't need an index. And then have it as a shared document file, Google Doc, that anybody on the commission can go to as a library whenever they feel like they need to do it, even if it's not pertinent to their own committee, but to another, and they want to look at the resources that the other committee is citing to justify its proposal. We can go through it and just read it for ourselves, instead of each committee circulating massive quantities of stuff, and it just becomes a huge headache. Is that feasible, or does that run afoul of some other principles?
I think that, I don't know if your question is directed to me, but I think that probably sounds feasible. And maybe you and Connor and I can talk about it, or you and the chair and I can talk about it. Or Connor and the chair and you, something. I think we have a new website person at the city. There might be a way to do it through our website. Or some other, as long as we consider those public documents and produce them through IPRA and that kind of thing. That would be the main, I think, constraint.
Thank you very much.
True. Okay, any other committee comments? Matters from the chair. I would just say for the two committees that just have 3 on them, if you could continue. I know I wasn't able to make your last meetings, but let me know when your meetings are. I would like to be able to attend some of those, so I'd appreciate that. And I'll try to make those. Okay, that's all I have. Our
Chair
next-
Long, I'm, if I may, I'm the 4th member of the Human Rights Committee, and I'm also on the other committee, right? So maybe we could take it like meeting by meeting, committee meeting by meeting, where if I'm not gonna be able to make the committee meeting, like maybe you can go, and if I can make it, then you can't, but maybe we can keep in communication that way so that you can have part of that conversation for that committee, as long as we're not breaking the open meetings norms.
Well, I think it could be a problem if you're taking up matters from the last one and then I come into a meeting, and I don't know what do you think, Aaron? It still seems like it's problematic, and I know it was a committee you really had interest in, so I'd like to keep you on that.
Yeah, I think it might be, it's not impossible but I think it would be complicated. Like you would have to really sectionalize your topics and who talked to who. And you'd have, I mean, if you're only meeting once with your subcommittee and then you're reporting everything that happened at that subcommittee with this group, but I'm not sure that that's the level of sharing you're doing, then everyone would know.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
But
fair.
I'm not really sure that we have the capability to download that much information at every
Right.
commission either. So,
Okay, yeah, I just want to I want to try not to complicate things, but I do really have an interest in these topics, so.
Yeah, and I want to be on that, but I appreciate your consideration of that. I do.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, our next meeting is Thursday, February 9, and it will be in person in council chambers, right? And it will be at 5. So we will see you all there. And this meeting of the Charter Review Commission is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You all.
Thank you.
Great job.
Evening.